Okay, so here we go. Man flies airplane cube designed by OpenAI's ChatGPT. Hitting accelerate. Let's go a little bit faster, and then let's go up. Okay, it's taken off. So far, so good. So you can see a little collection of actions that I made here. These were all designed by, well, me, I guess I designed them, but the thing that wrote them was ChatGPT. This is ChatGPT. It's a browser-based chat application that uses all this stuff that OpenAI built to do what is essentially word prediction. It does it in really impressive ways. So what we could do is come in here and say, write a custom Playmaker action that gives airplane controls to a game object. It says, here's a basic action that allows a game object to have airplane controls. Now you're watching this in real time as it puts together this script. It knows to use the Unity engine and system collections. It's using the namespace for Playmaker actions. And it's crazy because I just said that just gives airplane controls to a game object. But even the sort of naming conventions that it's using, it's chosen to design this airplane using a rigid body. Here is the airplane controls that I made last time, which looks a little different. You can see that this one had a speed, pitch, roll, and yaw float. Still used rigid body. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to pop this in and see if this works any better than the last time. So I'm gonna copy this code, and I'll remember that this action is called give airplane controls, as opposed to the last one that was just simply called airplane control. So I'm gonna duplicate that one, rename it give airplane controls. We'll open up that script and we'll paste in the new script. It is giving us this one little error. And I think it's because it's using rigid body. Maybe what it needs is the game object. We say game object dot value dot transform. We just copy and put this in, because I think that's what it's suggesting, right? That's what it's trying to get the transform of. Tiny little cleanup. I think that's what it would want. It might be what I want. Well, let's just turn off airplane control. And instead, we're gonna type in airplane here. We're gonna put in the give airplane controls. Not as good of a name, not as elegant. The forward speed is going to be the acceleration that I'm using, getting here, this FSM float. I'm not quite sure this is going to translate into airplane control. So I came to the Playmaker forum to the action requests category, mostly just ones that either had 0 replies or made sure that they didn't say solved. And then I did a few of them. The bool to game object, this is one that I've wanted to do for a long time. Say my new game object, my game object, bool value, I'm gonna set to my bool. And we'll say between the directional light and the post-processing volume. So this should flip back and forth between the two every time. Post-processing volume, directional light, and it just worked. That one was perfect. This one required no tweaking, bool to game object. It just wrote this, 100% of this. I did nothing to this. I copied, pasted it, popped it in, and it worked as you see it here. I usually just use an array get, in case you didn't know, do an array get. Getting from your array, the index, you can convert a bool. So it'll use 0 or 1. So it'll either get something at index 0 or 1. So essentially the same thing, but it's nice to kind of have it in this interface. The other thing, what else did I tried card control. This one did not work out so well. This one was super funky, didn't really work. I don't even really bother looking into the code too much. I skim through it, but again, since I'm not super proficient in C#, when I look at this, it's like, yeah, I guess I can kind of see how this all works, but I don't try fixing anything up or expanding on it, because I'm really just trying to see what the hell can this thing do on its own with very little guidance. And the answer is a decent amount. Car control, not one of those things. So draw with pencil 2D, that one also did not work, but again, if you look down here at the code, you can see that it starts, it's trying to draw lines between vector 2 points, right? And it's doing it, it's giving you things like line color, line width, but as far as actually getting into this whole thing where it's saying like drawing vertex points, you know, start point and end points of a vertex, I don't know how to do that. I've never really looked into that. Don't really care to right now, but it's kind of funny. It gives you options for anti-aliasing and stuff too. So for all I know, with a few tweaks, this might become a usable script. It doesn't work out of the box, so I just kind of skipped it. First person with no clip controls. This is an interesting one. And I just go ahead and create a new camera, and on our new camera, I give it an FSM. First person, no clip controls. So the player is the camera, and the movement speed we'll say is 2, and rotation speed, turn, get axis. This is me trying to interpret this interface because I have not designed this, you know, or I designed it, but I did not code it. So the axis name will say horizontal. and the multiplier we'll say is 0.5. Let's keep it low. And then store it in turn. It requires a character controller. Strangely enough, I'm gonna come over here and add in a character controller. Okay, and we'll see if this works. And it's kind of working. What's weird is that it does not take my mouse controls into account unless I'm turning. Here are first-person controls as designed by an AI. Again, it's like something I think maybe if you just kind of perused the code and did some tweaks, you could make workable. Yeah, and another one similar to the bool, right? Like I had this game object switch, right? So it's exactly what it sounds like if you ever used a switch action, my game object, and you could say how many, and you could have them all set off to different things. So let's just do 3 for now. Directional light, post-processing volume, and this. Okay, and then at the top, we're gonna put in a set game object, and we'll say that it's my game object. So the events will be 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're gonna send off all 3 of these. So this game object switch, again, written 100% by or ChatGPT, is going to send an event depending on which of these game objects matches with this top game object. To begin with, I'll show you that if I put in, say, example assets here, right? That's gonna set my game object to that. It should fire off event 3. So if I play this, it goes to event 3. And yes, it's reliable. You can go through and say directional light, it'll send off 1. And it'll do the same thing with 2. Okay, see, totally works. That was another one that worked just like right out of the box. What's really funny here is it says store the game object. So store the game object selected in the variable. I didn't ask for this. I just asked for the switch part, but it also gives you the option to store it. So it's like, you could put a new one called the chosen game object, right? But what's interesting is it says store the game object selected in a oh, so this asked me to make an array. So I don't even know what it's trying to store in this. It adds the chosen game object to an array. Why? Who knows? But that's what it did. Get nearest child. Now here's an interesting one. So if I open up this scene, okay, so we have this cube, right? And then I duplicate it, make it a child of itself, okay? And let's shrink it down. Let's shrink down this baby one. Put all these little child cubes around. If I take this parent cube, add an FSM, nearest child. So it's 2 values, right? Use the owner, this is the one that's considered the parent, and the nearest child for that parent, we'll put in nearest child. Oops. Now if I play this, let's actually lock the FSM. And if I take this cube number 2, right, and I move it away, now it's cube number 3. So I'm guessing that's this one. Yep, cube number 3. Actually, let's take the furthest one, right, which is cube number 4. If I move this really close, eventually it's gonna say cube number 4, right? So now it is the closest one. You see that cube number 4 is the closest. So this works. This was another out-of-the-box one. I told it, write me an action that will get the nearest child of a game object. Here's kind of a crazy one. This is actually one of the first ones that I tried. So this is get objects in field of view. What I'm gonna do is create capsule, call this NPC. On the NPC capsule, we're gonna add an FSM, get objects in field of view. Okay, so I asked it, write a custom Playmaker action that gets all the game objects within a field of view. And then it told me, here's a sample Playmaker action that gets all the game objects within a field of view. Additionally, I also said, add a debug option to make the field of view visible. And then it said, here's an updated version of get objects in field of view Playmaker action that includes a debug option to make the field of view visible. Okay, and then it added this little debug bool and an option for the color, which I will make yellow. The game objects that it sees will be stored in an array. So we can come over to variables and we'll create a new array called objects scene, and it's a game object array. We're going to store it all in there. The field of view will be 90, so it'll create a 90-degree field of vision, field of view, and then the range as well, so how far it can see things. Let's just say 25 to be sure. And then if I press play, you could see our field of view debug lines, first of all, right? So if I change this field of view, you can see it gets more and more narrow, or I can really open it up. But what's insane is this fucking works. It works. Look at cube 6, 3, 2, 1, NPC N7. So it's seeing itself actually, right? That's kind of the funny thing. Potentially you could copy and paste this script into ChatGPT and ask it to ignore itself, right? Option to ignore self. As I move this along, you'll see that list populating and unpopulating to match the only ones that it sees, okay? And you'll see that as I move just out of line with that last cube, it only sees itself. But if I move just in line for that cube, it sees cube number 4. right? Cube number 4 is right there. I thought this one was particularly impressive. Has FSM with name. This is another nice one. Now, this one, it's just like, it looks for an FSM on a specified game object. So for example, I think I made one with acceleration, right? So back here, this one, I had the cube airplane or accelerate. So I'm just gonna copy this. Check all these game objects to make sure if they have accelerate. It sends true events and false events. I asked those to add it on after, because initially it just had a bool value for whether or not it has the FSM, right? So has FSM. The thing it gave me for free without asking was to store the found FSM in an object, to store it in a variable. So if I press play, you'll see that it's probably gonna return, or it should return false. Yep, return false because the owner, this game object, does not have accelerate. But if I specify my cube and then press play, you see it returns true. And those events work just fine. I tested it out. And the one I really like is scramble. If I just search scramble in here, I get 2 actions. So the first one I made was scramble string with word cipher. Okay, so the input string, my message. So we'll go to this and we'll say, hello, this is a secret message. Can you read this? The word cipher will say, donkey, bladder, full of love. And then the scrambled string, so it uses this as its word cipher. I'm not sure how. I'm not really sure what it's using this for, to scramble this message, but in some way it's using this scrambled message, and the output scrambled message will make a new variable called scrambled message. So if I press play, it comes out, and if I come over here to variables, scrambled message, it's like UB, like a parenthesis, %, greater than, it really kind of does it in. So it gives me nonsense. And then I have unscramble string with word cipher. This is a way of this is like a really simple encryption process. You could take the scrambled message, we'll take that, right? The word cipher, I'll copy and paste this in here. This is my word cipher. And the unscrambled string will output my message. No, I'm sorry, we'll make a new variable called my unscrambled message, right? Because it shouldn't know at first, right? This is a completely empty value. Start with my message, we scramble it up, and we take that scrambled up mess, use the original word cipher to unscramble it into hopefully what should be the original message again. And there you go. Hello, this is a secret message. Can you read this? And if it fucking works. I thought that was cool. Again, it was just something where I told it, I was like, I wish I could, this is my prompt. I told it to write a custom action that scrambles a string value using a word cipher. And then I told it a second prompt for the second action, write an action that unscrambles a scrambled string using a word cipher. Simple dialogue. Oh, here's an interesting one here again. Here we go. Man, I really am realizing that these descriptions for the actions are straight up the prompts that I gave it to it. Well, actually, the original one was implements a simple dialogue system. And then it made one for me, but it made it so it used 2 arrays, one with each line of dialogue, and then another one with the name of the person speaking the dialogue. And that was just like, well, that's tedious because then you have to put the same 2 names over and over again. So then I told it, I was like, can you write that same action again, but with an input for speaker names and making it like only between 2 people. I forgot, I put it much more elegantly. You have to be careful in how you word these things. So then it gave me this thing that says, implements a simple dialogue system with 2 speaker names. So now what's cool is your dialogue text, you could say current line of dialogue, and then the speaker name, you could put like current speaker name. By the way, I never put spaces in my variable names. So speaker name 1 we'll say is Steven, because why not? And then we'll say Stephanie, because why not? I think the one tweak I would ask ChatGPT to make would be to let me feed it a variable here. Because right now you have to put in like hard-coded value, which sucks. You put like, hello, and you say, hey, how are you? I'm fine, and you? I'm fine. Want to eat a grub? Sure. And then the delay, just put like 2 seconds or something, and then you're running every frame. Okay, so when the dialogue is done, it finishes and goes down there. So I press play, 2 seconds, and then it goes, Steven says hello. Stephanie says, how are you? Steven says, I'm fine, and you? Stephanie says, I'm fine, want a grub? And then it ends. It puts the last one here, but it looks like it went too fast. That might be something to tweak in there, is that maybe it didn't really consider the length of the last one for some reason. I mean, that's like a nice little simple dialogue system. If you could turn this into an array and then just feed a little script that kind of like does, what is it called? You could put like a string split in here, and then the string to split will be like, my text document. And then the separators are like brackets between each line or something. And then you put it into a new string array called my script So if this did take an array, if this was a string array, I could just feed it this thing. And that way you can literally just have like a notepad document that is like, hello, this, how are you? This, you know, or something like that. I mean, you can even just use like an @ sign, just something to denote an indentation. The last thing I want to do is come here, and there's like a handful of these requests on the Playmaker forum. First one, it says multi-key or button-down action. It says, I want to make a fighting game, but when I thought of making the controls for a controller, I saw there weren't enough buttons for me to make all the moves, so I thought of making it so you have to hold two. So you could do this with Playmaker Logic. For the convenience of shoving it all into one action, I thought it might be nice to see if we can crank this out. He even acknowledges it here. There are ways to do this without needing the actions, and we're just a bunch of spoiled brats that want it even easier. So let's try to do this multi-key or button down action. What I'm gonna try to do, write a custom Playmaker action, sends an event when 2 keys are simultaneously down. Okay, so here's that problem where I've been running into, it doesn't write me an action. So what I'm gonna do is reset thread, clears all that stuff. Write a custom Playmaker action that sends an event when 2 keys are pressed down simultaneously. There we go, okay. Sometimes you just need to clear the thread. Okay, so we're gonna copy this code, and I'm gonna come in here. I usually just take this little spin object, this short script, duplicate it. Wait, what is it called? Send event on 2 key press. Send event on 2 key press. Okay, and we'll open that up and Control A, Control V, send event on 2 key press. So key 1, yep, look at that. Lets us, so we'll say A and E. Okay, so I have to press A and E, and then it'll send next. And I may as well copy this and put it over here and say, when you press home and end at the same time, it also sends back here. Let's see if this works. I didn't even bother looking at the code. Hitting A, nothing happens. E, nothing happens. Holding A, I'm about to tap E. E. Oh, I'm holding A and I tap E, nothing happens. But if I press A and E at the same time, here we go. Yep, that's kind of impressive. That's really specific. It wasn't letting me hold A and tap E. It was waiting for me to press both of them down at the same time. And now we have home and end, right? So I'm hitting home, nope. But if I hit both of them at the same time, nice. A and E same time, nice. Look at that. Boom, 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 boom. That is very impressive because of how specific it was. What I'm curious about though is he says, hold press 2 to 3 button. So I wonder if we can ask it, can you alter the action to let the user define the number of keys to press? So it's like ideally, yeah, look at that. It's already kind of putting this little int, the number of key presses. We'll take this, paste it in. They renamed it to send event on multi-key press. Keys, okay, let's say it's 3 keys. Element, ooh. Okay, it's gonna be looking for me to press home, end, and insert. I don't know what this is. The number of keys that must be pressed simultaneously. Oh, let's say all 3. That's kind of crazy. And then it sends the event next. Home, just tapping it, home and end. I'm tapping them both at the same time, home and end. Insert, okay, I'm trying 2 at a time. The combinations of 2 at a time. I'm gonna try holding 2 and tapping 1. Okay, oh man, moment of truth, here we go. I'm gonna tap all 3 at the same time. Wow. That's kind of crazy. Oh man, brilliant. No, because now that's what's cool. Now I think what I can do that number of keys, I'm gonna change that to 2. Presumably I can just hit 2 of these now. So I'm gonna just press home and end. Yeah, and it works. And if I reset this, I'm gonna press home and insert. Yep, and we'll do just home. Nope. What if I do all 3? It does. So I think what this is sort of the minimum number of keys, as long as 2 are pressed, but multiple can. So that is fucking impressive. Send event on multi-key press. I would say this is very much knocked out. I'll see about posting this action later on. Look at this madness right here. So I'm gonna try to come up with like one more high level one. Let's say, write a custom Playmaker action that makes a game object hop around like a bunny by itself. So, you know, we'll see. It's called bunny hop, great. Save it. Is it missing anything? So there's something wrong here. So sometimes what it forgets is this, there's a private float hop progress. right? So that's right here. And hop speed is an FSM float. So sometimes what it doesn't delineate is between the two. So what you need to do is hop speed dot value, and then that clears that up. And then max height is also an FSM value. So you do dot value, and that clears that up. Oh, also, right? So you do randomness dot value, and then same thing with this one, dot value. This one, right? So sometimes it just needs to be told that there's a difference between a normal variable and an FSM variable. This needs to be dot value bunny hop on here. Max height, let's say 3, hop speed will be 2, randomness will be, let's just keep that low. And honestly, I have no idea what to expect here. Holy shit. Let's see. Randomness, let's crank it up to 5. Write a custom Playmaker action that makes a game object hop around randomly. Bunny hop and hop around random. This requires a rigid body, so we're gonna add a rigid body. Max speed, let's say 3. Max height, let's say also 3. Oh, what's gonna happen? Very interesting. Make it turn randomly too. Wow, it's just, oh, look at that. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, look at you. Hold on. Wait, let's change this then. Max speed, let's change it to 1. It kind of reminds me of like a Mexican jumping bean. Max speed, let's say 2. I think the speed is the amount of like little jumps it's doing. I mean, it certainly appears to be alive, as opposed to this boy, who's just way too jolly. Randomly turn left or right after it lands, yeah. Make it hop forward. Whoop. Whoop. So hopefully that as the tech progresses, stuff like this, there could probably be dedicated applications for this kind of thing. Because right now it's just like, this is just a chatbot. I can also say like, now make that into a song. Here's a song inspired by the Playmaker action that makes a game jump and move forward, turning a specific angle. So it's like verse 1. I'm a little, oh, I love how it's putting it in code too, by the way. Like that's its little flair. It's putting a little spice onto it. It's not this kind of text. It's not the plain text that it chats in. It puts it in the specified, like the code frame. I'm a little game object, jumping and moving forward, never stopping, always turning. In this world I'm exploring. The chorus is jumping, moving, turning, jumping, moving, turning, jumping, moving, turning. In this world I'm learning. Verse 2, I'm jumping higher and higher. With each step I'm getting bolder. I'm moving faster and faster. In this world I'm a star. Jumping, moving, turning. In this world I'm shining. I'm jumping, moving, turning. In this world I'm a blur. I'm jumping, moving, turning, and I'll never stop for sure. Brilliant. Brilliant. You know, so this application is just, it's generic, and it's not necessarily meant to be making code. I think a lot of people, the main thing they're using it for is like, give me some video game ideas. So we have the last city in a post-apocalyptic world. Of course, it's always post-apocalyptic. Players must survive and rebuild society. They must scavenge for resources, build and upgrade their shelter, and fend off hostile creatures and other threats. Lost at sea. Players are stranded on a raft. Man, how many stranded raft games? The ocean after shipwreck. They must gather resources, craft items, and fend off sharks and other dangers in order to stay alive and eventually find a way back to civilization. Escape the dungeon. I mean, you know, puzzles, traps, etc. Galactic frontier, distant galaxy, build space stations, of course. Superhero Academy. Players are students at a prestigious superhero academy where they must train, complete missions, and develop their powers in order to become, it's like an RPG kind of thing, maybe, probably. And then you could say like, what are the main mechanics for idea number 4, the Galactic Frontier one? Would likely include exploration, resource management, building and upgrading, and combat. And then it gives you all this, right? And then it's like, you could get ready to ask it like, how might I design that resource management in Playmaker FSMs? Here's one way to design the resource management for the video game idea Galactic Frontier using Playmaker FSMs. Create a Playmaker FSM on the player's space station game object. This FSM will handle the overall resource management for the player. Add a resource manager state to the FSM. In this state, the FSM will check the player's current resources and determine whether they have enough to build or upgrade structures. You could see something semi-coherent here, but it's like this becomes uselessly abstract, like right here, after it gets to step 3. it was sort of viable on step 2. You can sort of begin to figure how this might make sense. But as soon as it says add a gather resources state, okay. I've gone through these kind of things a million times to see the extent to which it can actually provide helpful information. And while rare, it at least is sort of like an inspiring thing, right? It can kind of like put you on the right path for it's like how much you do that. One of the things that I thought is kind of cool too is that like you can request sort of impossible things. So it's like write a custom Playmaker action that simulates the US economy. No, the world economy. Economy. It is not possible to create a custom Playmaker action that can accurately creating a simulation of the world economy in a video game would likely be too complex and time-consuming. Well, try making a super simple version then. I imagine the AI going like, oh, fuck you, fine. Like, God damn it, I'll do something. You always have to sort of finesse it and guide it into giving you something when it doesn't always give you the sort of right desired result. So here it goes. Now it's doing it. It's called Simulate Economy. It's an action called Simulate Economy. So we have an int for money. So this is the player's current money. We have an int for population, the player's current population. That the rate at which the population grows, population growth rate, the amount of money the player earns per unit of population. This action simulates a basic economy in a video game by updating the player's money and population over time. This action does not take into account any other factors that might affect the economy, such as taxes or market fluctuations, and is intended only as a simple and abstracted representation of an economy in a video game. Okay, so now write a custom Playmaker action that is a simplified version of market fluctuations. But you can imagine that asking it to like do the thing it said it didn't do separately like this, right? So now if it makes one that actually simulates market fluctuations, then you could put these two actions together. And then hopefully, like sort of in an ideal world, these actions can actually complement each other in some way. So we have a simulate market fluctuations action. So you have the money, so right, so you can imagine like plugging that money into the, like connecting it somehow. Market value, the current market value of a player's assets, the rate at which the market value fluctuates as a percentage. This action simulates market fluctuations by updating the player's money and market value over time. It's interesting because it's just, is it just an overtime thing? It says calculate the change in the market value based on the fluctuation. Update the player's money based on the change in market value. Update the market value. Let's say one more for a laugh. Write a custom Playmaker action for a gun to shoot a prefab bullet. The end. Let's just, okay. I mean, this looks like it might work, might need a little finessing. But then you can also say like, show me the script as if it were written by Austin Powers. The tooltip is makes a gun game object shoot a prefab bullet, baby. The gun game object to shoot the bullet from, groovy. Prefab bullet to shoot, yeah, baby. The speed at which the bullet will be shot, oh, behave. Instantiate a new bullet at the position of rotation of the gun, yeah. That's great. All right, guys, this video is probably gonna be like a lot shorter than it actually took to record. So I'm gonna end it here, but yeah, if you wanna see more stuff like this, screwing around with ChatGPT and Playmaker stuff, I'm down. It's really fun to screw around with, especially when you start going outside of just the context of making actions, but also sort of like the ideation phases of like, oh, what kind of game should I make? And you know, it more or less will always give you really boring vanilla, like, you know, that apocalypse shit that it was throwing at us back there, and like, you know, crafting your space station and blah, 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 blah. But there's ways to throw wrenches into those gears, and it's just fun. It's such a wealth of material instantaneously. It's a nice sort of piss off activity. All right, everybody. Peace, peace, peace.